There's a particular quality of silence in the aftermath of your own failure. The noise of the world retreats, and what remains is a courtroom built entirely inside your own skull. Persecutor, judge, jury, executioner, all wearing your own face. And the charge sheet is long. The words you shouldn't have said. The choices you should have made differently. Everything that you should have become by now. The damage you've done to yourself and others. The promises you've broken. The evidence is irrefutable. The verdict is already in. But somewhere in the wreckage of that inner trial, a small, thin, exhausted voice whispers something that all the self-help books, all the podcasts, and all the well-meaning friends and loved ones have been telling you for a while now. That you need to give yourself grace, it says. But the whisper sounds absurd, doesn't it? It sounds like a betrayal of justice, like letting yourself off the hook. And you've spent a very long time learning that letting yourself off the hook is a spiritual bypass. It's moral laziness. So you don't let yourself off the hook. You can't. The courtroom doors stay locked, and you're the only one holding the key. But your hand refuses to turn because you believe you need to stay locked inside and suffer. Now, let me tell you why giving yourself grace is the most spiritually important thing you can do for yourself right now. For you to understand grace in the way that I do, we need to look at what you think you owe and to whom. Because beneath every episode of self-flagellation, there is a spiritual contract. A contract that you never signed consciously, but you signed all the same in invisible ink in the back of your consciousness. And the contract states the following: that you are alive on the condition that you perform adequately, that your existence is not a gift, but a loan, and the interest payments are made in achievement, moral rectitude, relational harmony, and constant self-improvement. Every mistake is a default of that contract. Every flaw is a debt. And the lender, whether you call it God, universe, source, your family, your peers, society, mother, they are all keeping a meticulous ledger. The contract is not just psychological, it is spiritual, and it frames your whole relationship to the fact of your being. If you believe even just a little that your entire existence is a loan, then failure isn't just a painful passing experience. It's an ontological violation. You haven't just done something wrong, you have become something wrong. That is exactly how it feels. The depth, therefore, isn't merely in your actions. It's in your entire presence. And no amount of self-improvements can pay off a debt that is located at the root of the self, because the debtor is already defined as insufficient. Do you see the bind? Now, let's crack open that bind with a little bit of cosmology. Let me speak to you on the level of the real, the level where consciousness, atoms, galaxies, and all of that emerge. Because before there was a single moral rule, a single standard of achievements, a single metric by which a human being could be judged adequate or inadequate, there was just this, the sheer inexplicable fact that anything exists at all. Stay with me, I'm going somewhere with this. Modern cosmology tells a story of a singularity that expanded, a universe that erupted into being from a state that we can barely describe. And scholars for millennia, they've asked the question time and time again, why is there something rather than nothing? And no answer has ever satisfied us, because the question itself dissolves our mind's capacity to contain it. The universe didn't even have to be. It was radically contingent. And yet, within that contingency, somehow you emerged, a conscious node of source, a conscious node of whatever this is, capable of reflecting upon itself, capable of love, of awe, of wonder, and capable of believing with absolute conviction that you have failed to merit the space in which you stand right now. If you can't feel the staggering disproportion of the gift of existence and the tiny, petty courtroom that you built inside it, then you haven't let the true scale of this touch your wound yet. The universe did not consult a moral ledger before giving you form. It did not run a cost-benefits analysis. It did not require you to pass a test before giving you consciousness. It simply gave. The fact that you are here, breathing, yearning, aching, that is the first grace. It is not a grace anyone gave you. It is not a grace that you earned. It is a grace that is completely identical with the fact and the event of your being. If you can let the weight of what I say touch you, even just a bit, then the whole model of what you think you owe collapses. And it collapses on the fact that you existed before you had the capacity to earn the right to exist. But self-flagellation doesn't just come out of nowhere. If you are this resistant to grace, then there's a deeper reason. And I started to speak about it earlier. Now let me go deeper. The spiritual contract that I spoke of, it has an origin. And that origin is not your personal weakness. When consciousness takes on the form of an individuated human self, it does not arrive fully formed and secure. It arrives through a process of separation. As a child, you were immersed in a seamless field of being, undifferentiated from your environment, undifferentiated from your caregivers, undifferentiated from mother. But in order to be an individual, a separate self that can reflect, that can choose, that can think, you needed to separate from that primal unity. And as necessary as it was also very traumatic. I like to call it the first trauma. It left a scar. The felt sensation of having lost connection to a source, of being disconnected from a primordial home that she can't quite remember but can never entirely forget. That scar is the birthplace of the contract. Because once you are a separate self, you become terrifyingly vulnerable. You are finite, mortal, capable of error, exposed to judgment, dependent on love that you can't even control. And to manage that vulnerability, the psyche constructs a deal with reality. I will be good. I will be worthy. I will be perfect. And in return, existence will not abandon me. The contract is a child's desperate attempt to renegotiate the terms of existence from a position of fear. So as an adult, when you fail, and you will fail because you're merely human, you don't just experience your failure as something passing through. You experience it as something that threatens to revoke your right to exist. The courtroom inside your head is a defense mechanism run amok. It's the voice of a terrified child who believes that self-punishment will either restore the contract or at least prove to the universe or God or mother that you know you violated it and are sorry. And the logic is, if I punish myself harshly enough, perhaps the true judge will see my remorse and spare me annihilation. If the entire model of what you owe hasn't collapsed yet, that makes sense, because at the end of the day, cognitive insights alone is not enough to disrupt a system that you've built for survival. Your self-condemnation exists because it has a protective utility. Your persecutor part isn't even interested in truth. It's interested in control, and its doctrine is brutally simple, that if we maintain ruthless surveillance, we protect ourselves from future harm. And yes, I said selves because you are not one thing. You are not a monolith. You are multiple parts with different needs. But I digress. Now, the question here is, what does harm look like to you? What harm does your persecutor part believe it is protecting you from? Chaos? Moral decay? Or perhaps using self-flagellation as a crutch to avoid accountability with something outside of yourself? Ask it. Ask this part of yourself. Have a conversation with yourself. Hear yourself out. Because whatever answer that you get back isn't going to be proof that your self-flagellation was justified. It's going to be a confession. It will be your persecutor part revealing the thing around which it's built its entire stronghold of control. And once you figure this thing out, grace becomes something that is available to you, that makes sense to you. Because one thing that people fail to understand is that grace is not generic. It is not blanket absolution. It is not pretending that consequences are imaginary. It is not the spiritual performance of give yourself grace, rainbows, and sunshine. No. And yes, I said it earlier that there is primordial grace, which is a structural principle that your being precedes your worthiness. But there is also applied grace, which is the specific texture and form of this primordial grace that is uniquely applicable to you as an individual. Most people feel like giving themselves grace even when they try because they don't realize that grace must be shaped to the wound. If your persecutor part fears chaos, then grace must arrive in a form that feels structured. If it fears moral collapse or decay, then grace must arrive in a form that proves that accountability can exist without brutality. If it fears abandonment, then grace must feel like presence instead of exile. Because what looks like a resistance to grace might actually be an incompatibility with the type of grace being offered and the wound to which that grace is being offered to. People hand you their version of mercy and wonder why you reject it. Right? I'll leave you with a task today. Go and understand what your persecutor part is protecting you from. And persecution and protection might sound two words apart to you, but a lot of times it isn't. A lot of people do inner work to find out that their persecutor part is also their protector part. But I digress. Go and have a conversation with yourself. Go and hear yourself out. Because once you understand what it wants, grace will stop sounding like a platitude to you. Grace will become something functional and meaningful to you. And perhaps, for the first time, the doors of the courtroom that I spoke of in the beginning will open. And you'll set yourself free, having realized that you no longer need to stand in perpetual trial of yourself. Good luck and see you on the other side.